All right, everyone, this is the moment we've been building up toward since we started this project. We are talking about my top 10 games, at least for this year, 2017. Starting off our list, we have a game that's been in the top 10 as long as I've been doing one, or top 100 as long as I've been doing one, but it's never been this high. This is Catacombs. Now, Catacombs used to be an ugly old game that I loved, and I was the only person who loved it. At least I think so. Recently, this new edition came out, and they keep putting... well, there's gravity for you. They keep putting new stuff out for this game. In fact, I just got 2 more expansions, and there's just a ton of content here. Basically, one person plays the role of a dungeon lord, and the other person plays the role of some heroes. You could play with more people if you wanted. And these heroes are going through the dungeon. And the way that you fight in this game is you'll take your disc that represents your hero or monster, and you will flick it at the opponent. And if you hit it, you'll do damage. There's a bunch of different kinds of damage modifiers. There's even a large gelatinous cube that you can use to flick around and attack people. There's even one for the heroes to use, too, so everybody's got one, although it's smaller. But there's just so much. I mean, this is a light-hearted game, but it is also the best dexterity game out there. It takes this idea of flicking and it gives it a new life in a dungeon crawl like no other. One that I will always play, and I'm always trying to recruit people to. This is my number 10, Catacombs. My number 9 is a game that my sister refers to as the cow game, and she will groan when she sees it. This is Great Western Trail. This is a, really Euro-y game in which you're taking a cowboy and you're taking a herd of cows and you're trying to get them to Kansas City. And you'll move your figure a couple of spaces and stop and do an action. Meanwhile, you're trying to build the most efficient hand of cows that you can, because then you can get the most money. You've got contracts you're trying to work to complete. You're trying to move this train along to get farther ahead to get points. There's a lot of things you can do. There's a lot going on. You can try and build a herd of really expensive, valuable cows. But once you get to the end of your trail, only cows that are unique in your hand count. So you start with all these garbage cows and you're trying to purge them out, but you might want to keep 1 or 2 because you got to have, if you have just valuable ones, only one of them counts, and then that's a wasted trip. You'll make it around the board a couple of times, you'll upgrade yourself, you'll get more actions, more abilities, you'll be able to move faster, hold more cards, but it's just a great game. It's one of those games that the first time you play it, you might not really know. It might take you half the game to get, but once you've played a couple of times, this is just a phenomenal game. It is Great Western Trail, my number 9. My number 8 is another Euro game, of course, because I love that kind of game. This is Concordia. I have it in the Concordia Salsa box, but that's, it comes in a different box too. This box is kind of ugly, actually. But basically, this is a trading game. You are trying to build up your trading network. There are lots of different maps now. You can trade in the Mediterranean, you can trade in the United Kingdom, you can trade in Germany, you can trade in Italy, you can trade in Spain. Lots of different places you can trade, but basically what you've got is a hand of cards, and each card lets you do a different action. And one of the cards, of course, lets you pick up all the cards and put them back into your hand. And so you're trying to, use your hand of cards and pick the right moment to call them all back, because that doesn't really give you very much, but you got to do it, otherwise you run out of actions. You've got, you're trying to move your pieces around, you're trying to collect money, you've always got to find a way to get money, you're trying to collect resources, buy, sell, trade, build buildings, lots of things you can do, and the different cards that you're building, because as the game goes by, you can buy more cards for your hand that give you these actions again, but you want to pay attention to how they score, and you're going to focus on, one of a few different ways that you can get points. And it's all about sort of building a hand that's a deck of cards that's going to give you the most points and get you the actions that you need. With the salsa version, you've also got salt, which is a wild good, and you've got special ability tiles that you can pick up, which just sort of add a little bit more variety to the game and make it even that much better. Concordia is just a phenomenal trading game, and it is my number 8. My number 7 is on lots of people's lists. This is Scythe. Scythe is a game I've played lots of times. It is a big, grandiose looking game, but at its heart, you're really just picking an action and trying to maximize it. You've got lots of different factions. What are there, 8 now? I don't remember. There's a lot of different factions, and they each have a small special ability. One of them can, normally you have to do actions, a different action each turn. One of them can repeat the actions constantly. One of them can move over water more quickly. One of them can have there's these adventure cards you pick up, and one of them can do more things on those adventure cards. Lots of other different abilities. But you're just trying to find a way to get the most points, and you're trying to get these stars out, and the stars are worth a lot of points, but once you get 6 out, the game's over and you win. You've got a special objective that you can get. You can fight a little bit, and you've got these big old machines that are stomping all over the board, but they don't fight that much. It's more about building your engine than it is about destroying somebody else's. But it's just a great game. There's a new expansion coming out that I'm waiting for anxiously, and the solo game version of this works just phenomenally. It is one of my favorite solo games to play as well. This is a game that I foresee myself enjoying for years to come. My NumberSeven Scythe. My NumberSix game is, well, sounding like a broken record, but another Euro game. This game was just outside of my top 10 this last time, and it's firmly within my top 10 this time. This is The Voyages of Marco Polo. In this game, you are on an expedition to the Orient. You play one of a number of different explorers that are just traveling along the Silk Road. You're building trading posts, you're fulfilling contracts, you're collecting goods. The goods are these little wooden tokens, and we always joke that they are gold, jello, and bags of poop, just because they're these little brown bag tokens. But it's a great game. You've got special abilities, and the special abilities, each one is over the top overpowered. But because they're all so great, it doesn't matter, because everybody's got access to something special and something unique. My favorite one is the one where you've got 2 explorers that are going out, so you can cover territory twice as fast. Money's tight. You're using dice sort of to select your actions. You roll your dice, and you can use them in different combinations. But unlike some other games, you're never blocked. You can always do whatever you want. You just have to pay a little bit more for it. You might have to increase your die value or something. But there's always, if somebody takes an action, you just have to pay for the difference in what you used. And so it's just a really good game because you're never out of things to do. And it is a lot of fun. It's not super long. I like it best with 2 or 3. But it's a game that I am always, always, always eager to play. And I'm looking forward to the new expansion that came out at Essen just a few days ago, once it makes its way over here. This is my NumberSix, The Voyages of Marco Polo. My NumberFive is a game that has been in my top 10s since I've been doing top 10s, and I think it'll stay there. This is Chaos in the Old World. This game was a revelation to me the first time I played it, because in this game there are different ways to win for different people. And I just thought that was so fascinating. You've got 5 different factions, well, 4 and then 1 more with the expansion, and each of them is totally unique. You have one that wants to kill people, you have one that wants to spread out, you have one that wants to occupy certain kinds of areas. They're just all different, and they all have their own ways to win. You can win by getting a certain number of points. I believe it's 50 points. Or each one has its wheel with these unique advancement conditions, and when you turn the wheel all the way to the end, it says, hey, you win. It's simple. It's kind of the same rage mechanism that we saw in Blood Rage, where you've got a certain amount of power, and once you spend it all, you can't do anything else, even if it's a free thing. And so there's, my favorite one to play with, I think, is the magic god Chench or whatever. I can't remember their names, but his ability is that he can play it slow and wait it out and then have a bunch of free unopposed actions. I just think that's so much fun. It's a little bit dark. Some people have complained that the board looks like stretched human skin or whatever, but it's just fun. I mean, this is a well-designed game, and it is a game that, Cthulhu Wars was down toward the bottom of my list. This game is kind of a similar vein, but this one just does it so much better. It's clean, it's pure, and, well, pure in the sense that corrupting gods would be. But it's just a well-designed, well-oiled, beautiful piece of game design, and it is something that I enjoy playing every single time I possibly can. I wish I got to play it more. This is my number 4, Chaos in the Old World. Sorry, that was my number 5. I'm not good with counting. My number 4 is Imperial Settlers. Imperial Settlers, and I put with this game 51st State. I debated whether I was going to keep them separate, but they were going to be back-to-back anyway. And 51st State is really the same game as Imperial Settlers. It's just in a different... It has a few slightly different mechanisms. In Imperial Settlers, you take a different civilization. There are currently 6. You've got Romans, you've got barbarians, you've got Japanese, you've got Egyptians, you've got Aztecs and Atlanteans, and hopefully a new one's coming out. And each one is very different. They all have different their own little deck of cards that are unique to them, and they give them over-the-top great special abilities. And you're just taking actions and you're trying to maximize your abilities and build your little tableau so that you've got good production, you've got good actions you can take, and it's fast, it's easy to get into. I like it best as a 2-player game because people can kind of drag it on in a 3 or 4-player game, but still, even with 3 or 4, it's great. I even like it solitaire. There's a nice campaign mode you can play where you can kind of upgrade your empire that I've played through a couple of times and I've really enjoyed. It's just a lot of fun. And the cards have some nice, light-hearted, humorous artwork in them. There recently came out, the most recent faction, the Aztecs, has the ability to pray, and so they came out with a set of cards that were all religious-themed that gave the different other factions some, prayer actions they could do, which I just found was really funny. Imperial Settlers is just great. Imperial Settlers is one of my very, very favorite games. In fact, it's my number 4. And I believe it was my number 4 last year. Don't remember, but it was certainly close to that. Imperial Settlers, and in parentheses, 51st State, my number 4. Now, my number 3 is kind of sad for me, because this is a game that used to be even higher than my number 3, but another game has kind of come along and replaced it. But not so much. It's just gone down from number 2 to number 3. This is Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle is one of the most beautiful, subtle, thematic games that there is. In this game, one person plays the Soviet Union and one person plays the United States, and you are struggling for political influence over the world. There are 3 ways to win the game. You can win it by points at the end game. You can win it by getting so far ahead that your opponent can't catch up. You can win it by controlling Europe at certain moments. Well, you can even win it in a couple other ways if your opponent starts a thermonuclear war, but that's maybe a little less likely. It's just beautiful, and it takes you through the entire Cold War, and the cards are real historical events, and they have an effect on the game that's sort of mirrors what happened in real life. It is a little bit of a steep learning curve. The first time you play, first 2 or 3 times, you're not going to do very well. The person who knows the game is going to do better. That's just the way it is. It's a game that you will get better at as you play, as you know what's coming. But, my goodness, when you play it with a good player, a close game of Twilight Struggle is a thrill like no other. The only problem is that it's a little bit long and a little hard to teach. There's an app version now, though, that allows you to play with people who aren't in the room and maybe get a little bit, a few more games in. But Twilight Struggle with a good player is just pure satisfaction. It has gone down just 1 spot from my number 2 to my number 3, and here we have it, Twilight Struggle. And so now we have number 2. Number 2 is a game that I play more than just about any other game these days. This is Sentinels of the Multiverse. Now, this is just one box. I've got 3 other boxes full of Sentinel stuff sitting on the shelf over there behind the cameraman. This is a superhero game. And you play as one of, a team of 3 or 4 superheroes, and you're fighting against some great big monster, some great big villain. And these are superheroes, but they're not the ones that you know from, real comic books. You don't have Superman and Batman here. the game, the developers have developed their own sort of comic book lore, and they've done it so well. You pick up these cards and you feel like you know the heroes, and they've got little snippets from their comic books, and there's a whole lot of story. And one thing I love about this game is that they've been planning the story for so long. If you look at older cards, you can see characters who don't show up for 2 or 3 expansions down the road. It's impressive the amount of development that has gone into the story behind this game. It helps also that there's a podcast that I listen to every Tuesday called The Letters Page, where they take a character and they just tell all the backstory about him. And it's so impressive how much love and dedication has been put into this game. The art has gotten progressively better over the years. Initially, there was a problem with the game that it was very difficult to play. Not because the rules were hard, but there was a lot of modifiers to keep track of. An app came out from Handelabra, the Sentinels Multiverse, the video game app, and currently that app has absolutely everything that is available in the card game except just a few cards. They have done a remarkable job at catching up to the Sentinels physical game. And when you play the app version, you learn how to play the physical version better. I play this game all the time. I play it every single week, at least once, sometimes more than once. It is a game that I go back to all the time. The stories that you tell are just like no other. There's a great big expansion coming called Oblivion, and it's going to be the last expansion for this particular game, unfortunately, although a sister game is spun off, so, we're not leaving the world. But I love Sentinels of the Multiverse. I have played this game more than 300 times this year, and that is just since January. And I anticipate playing it 100 or more times before the end of the year, and I never get tired of it. It is just that much fun. My number 2, Sentinels of the Multiverse. And the big surprise, the thing everyone's been wondering, what could be number 1? Anyone who knows me knows what number 1 is. It's not going anywhere. My number 1 game is Summoner Wars. Everybody who's ever played games with me has heard about Summoner Wars. I am probably the world's biggest Summoner Wars missionary. Summoner Wars is a mage versus mage game. You take a faction, and the other player takes a faction, and you're trying to defeat your opponent's summoner. It's just that simple. But each of the factions, and let me tell you, there are 40 different factions in this box. Each of the 40 different factions is unique. Okay, technically there aren't 40 different factions. There are 40 different summoners, 40 different base decks. But each of those base decks is unique. But you can also customize the deck. But you can't, it's not like some customizable deck games where you can put anything you want into the game. In this game, you can just, there's some very simple deck building rules. You can throw some things in, take some things out, and start playing in just a few minutes. You can learn the game super easily. I have played this game literally 3,500 times. I used to play test for it. It's done. They're not producing any more content, so what we have is what we have. But what we have is a lot, and what we have is a masterpiece. This is a game that I will love playing forever. It is a game I will never turn down. It is a game that I actively recruit people to play so much that it gets annoying to my friends at game day. But I love Summoner Wars, and nothing else comes close to it. Nothing else ever has. Nothing else ever will, as far as I can tell. Summoner Wars is my number 1 game of all time. And that, dear viewer, is the list. We've gone through 100 great games. I could talk about 100 more if my cameraman would suffer filming those for me, but he's shaking his head no, so I think we have to be done at just 100. But I thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I'm happy to recommend any other games or tell you more about why I love certain games. But I've really enjoyed doing this. It's always a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Thanks. Bye.